Welcome back, third grade. Today we explore another type of poetry called the quatrain. So you are just total haiku experts. You're counting your syllables, you're following the pattern. And the quatrain actually is much simpler than the haiku, and it's very common. In fact, I found this quote. This man named James Fenton is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to poetry. He's a poet himself. He's a literary critic, which means he looks at other people's poetry and gives them feedback. And he's a professor at a university and he teaches all poetry. So what he says is pretty meaningful when it comes to poetry because he's an expert at it. And he says, at 4 lines with the quatrain, we reach the basic stanza form, familiar from a whole range of English poetic practice. Wow, that's a mouthful. What he's saying there is the quatrain rule of being 4 lines in each stanza is super popular and shows up in a lot of different writing, particularly poetic writing. He says this is the length of the ballad stanza, the verse of a hymn, and other innumerable verses. So I was thinking, a hymn is often a song that is sung in church, so that's super popular and frequently recited. And a ballad is usually an oral story that's told from generation to generation. And so that is something that has had roots in our culture and our language for a very long time. So thank you, Professor Fenton, for that explanation. Friends, it's as easy as this. The only rule for a quatrain is that it has to have 4 lines in a stanza. It could be a poem with just 1 stanza. It could be a poem with 100 stanzas. For it to be a quatrain, it just has to have 4 lines. Now, a lot of quatrains end up having a certain rhyme scheme. You'll often find rhymes in a quatrain, but that is not one of the rules. So that's it, folks. That's the only rule for it. It's going to make for a short lesson today. So here is an example of a quatrain. I've gone through and noted the different stanzas. Remember, stanza is a word similar to paragraph in our writing. It's a group of lines. The rule for a quatrain is that there are 4 lines in each stanza. Here we go. Car wash. When I'm hungry, I eat cars. I can chew 3 at a time. Turning mud to sudsy bubbles, all day long I swallow grime. My mouth hangs open every spring, luring cars to my garage with promises of shiny beauty, cleanliness, a deep massage. I love all my meals on wheels, antique and sporty, short and wide. I eat them up, I clean them up, I spit them out the other side. So you can kind of tell that the 4 lines in each stanza give it some separation, adds to the rhythm of the poem that I'm reading. And this particular poem, Amy, who wrote it, used a lot of really descriptive words, and I am just having tons of imagery that is being created in my mind. I'm seeing these like light brown bubbles forming on a very dirty car, and I'm thinking of springtime. Just this weekend I drove by a couple car washes and they were totally packed. I mean, lines out to the road. And so I was thinking of all of these cars that I see that are going in. When I heard this massage, obviously that's a type of personification. Humans can give and receive massages, not car washes. But immediately I'm thinking of all of the scrubbing and the brushes that happen when your car goes through a drive-through. A car wash, I mean. And then when the poet starts listing the different types of cars that come in, then I start envisioning all different shapes and sizes of cars. And then I can visualize them coming out the other side of the car wash completely clean. So tons of imagery in this particular quatrain. Also, I'm hoping that you heard some of the rhymes. Time, grime, garage massage, wide side. So in this poem, part of the rhyme scheme is that in each stanza, lines 2 and 4 rhyme. All right, your turn to try to test some of these out.